How do you see the future of Nolo?
I think it's huge. No one's cracked the code yet, I would say, and that basically means that there's a gold mine waiting, and it's kind of like the gold rush. You know, everyone's people are in their labs just figuring out who's going to come up with the best technology, the best way, the best variety, the best, and that challenge alone is super exciting. Direct answer to your question, because that's more the R&D side, that's more the upstream perspective, but the downstream perspective is I just think that people are really, you know, as you've seen, alternatives now are becoming the mainstream. If you apply that same logic to the category of wine, you say, is there a future for low? No, I think if you just look historically, if you take a step back and look at the food industry and other industries as well, everything points toward this being a long-lasting trend.
This episode was recorded with Danny Harper in front of the microphone. He is an American wine lover living in France. Not weird enough? He also works for a Nolo, as he calls it, company. It's called Le Moderato, who produces non-alcoholic and low-alcoholic wines in Paris. He shared his experience of entering the wine market with Nolo products, especially the crazy French market, and he also shared what celebrity he would love to have as an influencer for the marketing strategy. I would love to have you as consumers of the following episodes. So please hit the subscribe button if you like what you hear. And right now, enjoy the episode.
Right now, we are here with Danny Harper from Le Moderato, export manager of the company
Since March 2022, so a little over a year.
When was the company founded?
Company was founded in 2020. So
2020. So quite a young company, focused on non-alcoholic wines. Mm-hmm. And today we are here to talk about non-alcoholic wines,
correct,
the business and the opportunities and challenges.
Yes.
First question, have you ever tasted a good non-alcoholic wine?
Yes.
What was it? How was it? I mean...
Okay, well, obviously this is very subjective, right? I mean, we all have different tastes, but, and I have to say that my appreciation for alcohol-free wine has expanded since I started working at Moderato. And the more you taste, the more you appreciate it. So it's an acquired taste, I would say, too, just like wine is. But how was it? I'm trying to think now of a few concrete examples. And I'm just going to use ours as an example because biased as I might be, it's my true opinion. I love our red. It's like, and the reason why I would say it's good is because it's got this nice tannic profile, and it's part of what I love in red wine, and a good red wine from like a Chateau Neuf du Pape. You know what I mean? Something that's gonna fill your mouth. You get the full mouth feel. It's gonna dry you out to the point where you're like, I need another sip because.
Okay, good.
My tongue's dry now.
And did your taste change, and also the thing, let's say the way you see wine?
The way I see traditional wine, classic wine, everything. I don't think it changed the way I see wine. I was trained in sensory analysis. I mean, I studied wine in college as part of my master's program. So I love wine as a product, and we all do actually at Moderato. It definitely changed the way I view non-alcoholic wine and just the product family in general. Expanded, I would say, my knowledge and appreciation for it, and just I love the process of fermentation, and the fact that you can still retain some of the virtues of fermentation after removing the alcohol is just, for me, another reason why fermentation is the best thing that's ever happened to humans.
Okay, I get it.
That's another podcast.
Yeah. Well, what would you consider as a good situation to have a non-alcoholic wine?
Wow, there are a lot. I'm gonna speak on a personal basis. For me, it's definitely I would say the ideal occasion for alcohol-free wine for me is a Monday or Tuesday night after a busy weekend. I would say a festive weekend.
Okay.
Again, personal experience. So on Monday night, long day, usually that's kind of when I'm like coming off the weekend, I'm thinking, okay, I want to get back into the, discipline of the work week, and I associate wine with unwinding, alcohol with unwinding, and usually I don't want to unwind in that sense. I want to concentrate at the beginning of the week, and so for me, that's the perfect time after a Monday, a long day at work, to come back home and have an alcohol-free beverage, alcohol-free wine, because you keep your wits about you, you still engage in the ritual around it. So you get the pleasure without basically the temptation of falling back into the vices of the weekend.
Yeah. Okay, I get it. Yeah. Is this also the story you focus on in marketing?
No, it's not. That's why I mentioned that it was a personal. It could be, why not? But that's not the angle that we take, because I don't think that's everyone's story. I don't think that everyone consumes alcohol in the same way. I tend to consume it generously, and I think that everyone has a different relationship with alcohol, and we want to focus on the pleasure of the product, right? We really think that we make good products, and they've been recognized as such. They've been awarded as of very recently, actually, since we last met. They've received international awards, and so I think I can speak for the company and for the category at large. We say there's so much good about it. We don't want to focus on the fact that you're sacrificing anything. You're sacrificing alcohol, when in reality, the product itself, we want to be communicating the fact that it is an enjoyable product, an enjoyable process, and not on the contrary.
Okay, and you started with low alcohol wines, and you completely switched to non-alcoholic?
Yeah,
what was the main?
We're in transition right now. So our portfolio contains both of them. And it's funny because since the beginning of alcohol-free, the category has been called low-no, and that's something that as an American I've always accepted, because we grew up with light beers around all the time. But in Europe, I think it's less familiar with it. But in reality, when people are referring to low-no, they're really just talking usually about alcohol-free. And that's something I think is pretty cool with us. It's like you can, if you're coming to us as a distributor or a retailer or an importer, you can say, hey, what do you guys have to offer? Oh, you have alcohol reduced and alcohol free. The fact of the matter is, though, is that they're two different products, two different targets, two different, from a commercial standpoint, ways of selling it and communicating the product to the consumer, and with different restrictions. One is alcohol, so you're restricted legally in Europe, the way you can, at least in France, the way you can market it, and with alcohol free, you're much more free. So it complicates things, and without a doubt, the market is much more established for alcohol free than it is for alcohol reduced.
Ah, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So what we didn't tell you guys is that actually the company is located in France, a wine country. Mm-hmm. So it might be difficult to introduce those products into the market.
Correct.
What do you see as the biggest challenges?
Okay, I also want to preface, as you can probably tell from my accent, that I'm not French. But I've been living here for a while, and I feel like I know the culture, 7 years to be exact. I know the culture well. And I think that, there's definitely a conservatism in general in the French market. Before I worked here, I was working in big distribution, basically, for the food industry, and focusing on the wine spirit sector. And it's no secret that the French market is one of the toughest markets to crack, at least within the European Union. The retail chains are hard to access, the buyers are hard to convince. It's just a country that, in general, when it comes to food and tradition, is very proud of what they have to offer, as they should be. And for that reason, I think slower to change, especially when it comes to the products that are emblematic of the country, like wine and cheese.
You as an export manager, you have a lot of contact to other markets. Mm-hmm. What would you say are the more open-minded countries for this type of wine?
The two that come to mind, but they're not the only two, are Netherlands, okay, and the UK. Why? That's a whole nother. So Netherlands. Let's start with Netherlands. I'm spitballing here, but I think we were just talking about France and the fact that it's a conservative country with respect to their wine traditions and food traditions at large. But I think that holds true with a lot of wine producing countries. In general, when you look at from the sales perspective, when I got here, I mapped out kind of the opportunity, and I thought. And very quickly, without even realizing at the beginning, where I identified the opportunities to be, like the quickest opportunities for development, they all tended to be non-wine producing countries. So I think in general, non-wine producing countries, as it relates to wine products or wine derivative products such as alcohol-free wine, they're already used to seeing a panoply of different wine origins in their stores and be more open-minded by that by that same reasoning, you know. So you can now that's for the Netherlands, and on top of it, I would stick to that being the main reason why the Netherlands is more open-minded, but that could apply to many other countries. I think there's also something about the fact that they're just very innovation-oriented, and for reasons I probably don't understand yet because I'm not very well versed in Dutch culture, they've been, it's been a part of their offer in retail chains that have been selling alcohol-free wine for a long time, and much longer than in neighboring countries, with the exception probably of Germany. And then the UK, I would say I would apply the same reasoning as Netherlands, but add the fact that it's kind of like the melting pot. There's so much cultural diversity there. And in general, you see it. You go to a farmer's market in London, and everything. I feel like the more that's free from, the higher value there. It's just a market where that's where vegan products took off first. I feel like it's a bastion for innovation in Europe, and I think that's also might be due to its connection, at least culturally and linguistically, with the United States, because a lot of beverage trends come from the U.S., both alcoholic and non-alcoholic, in the sector. At least that's what industry professionals always say and claim, and they're not always good ones. Like seltzers didn't translate, but to the European market. But a lot of them do come from the U.S., and I think that there's connections between the U.K. and the U.S. culturally and historically.
Okay. How do you see the future of Nolo, especially in Europe, maybe?
I think it's huge. It's at its infancy still, and that's part of the reason why I decided to join the adventure at Moderato. I'm going to modify your question. You said Nolo in general. I'm going to say Nolo wine. I'm going to specify it a little bit more, because Nolo beer, like alcohol-free beer, I would say it's already a decade ahead in terms of its development. Spirits maybe a little bit behind, but close. But wine, it's something that it's still in its infancy, and no one's cracked the code yet, I would say, and that basically means that there's a gold mine waiting, and it's kind of like the gold rush. Everyone's people are in their labs just figuring out who's going to come up with the best technology, the best way, the best variety, the best, and that challenge alone is super exciting, and I think that's so. It's not really a direct answer to your question, because that's more the R&D side. That's more the upstream perspective. But the downstream perspective is, I just think that people are really, as you've seen, alternatives now are becoming the mainstream. 20 years ago, people used to laugh when you asked for a vegetarian option at the menu, or they just put a few leaves on your plate and give you a snide look. And now it's almost like it would almost be shameful not to offer one. Yeah. And similarly with vegan options, now that you're seeing in main urban areas all around the world, vegan cafes and restaurants, and it's just, and for ages now, you look at your shampoo bottle, it's free from blah, 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 and it's just, it's not a new concept, right? I think people are really, it's an extension of that, and so if you apply that same logic to the category of wine, you say, is there a future for low? No, I think if you just look historically, if you take a step back and look at the food industry and other industries as well, everything points toward this being a long-lasting trend.
So you would say the mass adoption will come with getting to the wine lovers in general? When and how would you get me as a wine freak to drink no-alc wines?
Well, that's our goal at Moderato, which is to make wine, alcohol-free wine for wine lovers. I also want to qualify mass adoption. I don't think, and nor do I hope, that alcohol-free wine will ever replace regular wine. That's not the point. I just think it's adding on to the family. We're trying to extend the family, right? And I think we've already succeeded in extending the family, and now it's just a matter of informing people that, hey, there's a new addition to the wine family. It's called alcohol-free wine and alcohol-reduced wine, right? But like, you should try it, or you should try to incorporate it into your consumption schedule. Because right now, I think there's different types of drinkers too. We haven't talked about this. I don't know how the frequency with which you drink, but I imagine it's pretty frequent since you're a wine connoisseur.
You get used to spitting.
Yeah, sure, definitely. I mean, you have to. It's a matter of survival.
Yeah.
But if you're an occasional drinker, let's say once a week, once a month, a few times a month, I want to know the reason why. Like, is it because you just, first just understand why. If you're a daily drinker, okay, once you understand the reason, the motivations for drinking, then you can understand where the role of alcohol-free wine can fit. It's not going to fit for everyone, and nor should it. But I think for most people, alcohol is, objectively, it's a drug. It affects the body in very clear ways, right? So, if you have 2 glasses, I mean, I'm not going to go into the tech. We all know what I'm talking about. And some people, avoid specifically, even though they would appreciate an alcoholic beverage, the taste of it, the experience, they avoid alcohol, the beverage, because of the effect of alcohol. Okay, could be caloric, because of the caloric content. It could be because of the intoxicating effect. It could be because for health issues and everything. So, if people are avoiding and limiting their consumption because of alcohol, and that's a few assumptions, right? But I think that's fair to make, then alcohol-free product is perfect. It can fill that void in those cases.
Sounds like many opportunities and challenges in marketing.
Yeah, and that's why I'm happy that I'm not a marketer.
Oh yeah,
I'm just a sales guy. I'm like, please communicate this and as easily, as quickly, and as efficiently as possible, so I can sell my product, please.
Okay. One last question. We have a part of the podcast called Celebrity Corner.
Yeah.
If you could choose a celebrity for marketing reasons for your product, for your company, who would you choose and why?
Oh man.
This is not prepared. He has to think about it.
All right. For marketing purposes.
That represents the product and the lifestyle and just everything you mentioned.
Oh boy. Shoot. Okay. When like you get a surprise question and you can only focus on one thing. I'm gonna have to justify this after the fact, but I'm also parting from the thing that there's no such thing as bad publicity. I would say Celine Dion, just because I love Celine Dion.
Okay.
But also because she's a singer, and I think that I think that for artists such as singers, alcohol is tricky to manage. It dries you out. It's not good for your instrument and stuff like that. So it speaks. It's coherent. Someone who's a singer like Celine Dion wouldn't need to to limit their alcohol consumption or benefit from having an alcohol-free alternative. And on top of it, she is sick, or she just came out saying that she has like a disease. I don't know the details of which. Yeah. And I think that also could be like, it could also be like, hey, I mean, I wouldn't say it's the best way to market the product, but it's true that a lot of people avoid alcohol because of health reasons, right? Yeah. And I think that's a cool thing about that's part of the reason why I love to have an alcohol-free product in my fridge. People who don't, sometimes you have guests who don't drink alcohol, like for religious reasons or because for health reasons or for whatever their motivation might be, to have a product and be like, oh, I have something special for you. It gives a sense of satisfaction. But like, it could be a way also to vehicle the idea of saying like, hey, like this is a product that I now in my stage of life, given my health concerns, given my profession, that I can consume and take pleasure in, And on top of it, she's just the best singer in the world. Mark my words. I'm a fan.
So even though the wine is without alcohol, your heart will go on.
Perfect. You had the answer already. Why do you ask me?
It's a bit weird because I mean, when you think about that, she wrote the soundtrack and she sang the soundtrack for Titanic. But yeah,
it's not at all the best answer I could think of. Literally, the
But it's
second
really good.
you stop the camera, I'm gonna think of a million things, like cool celebrities or like, I don't know, something way cooler that I'd be proud of besides Celine Dion. But that's the first thing that came to my mind, and I was like, I can't think of anything
And
else right
she's a great singer, and she's French, so.
now. She's Canadian.
She's
French
Canadian actually, but
she
she
speaks French, and
yeah,
the French
right.
love her here. And yeah, that's my answer, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time, for your answers. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
It's good.
Pleasure to meet you. Pleasure to talk with you. And yeah, thanks for getting the word out there. Getting the word out there for alcohol free, for Moderato. Don't let me forget. I have to have you taste it and send you
yes,
some
yes,
bottles.
please. And I will tell you how it was.
Yeah.
By the way. So thank you very much. Good wish. Everything best for the future.
Yeah. Thank you. You're always welcome.
I will definitely come back. Paris is a beautiful city.